Welcome to Planning Phase Syndicate. Thank you all so much. This is our Star Wars Unlimited podcast. This is episode 37, and tonight we've got the holidays are coming because we got Wookiees and we got droids and we got Santa Claus hats. Thank you all so much. If you have supported the show over the years, we greatly appreciate you. This is going to be our last episode of the year. We are going to take next week off for holiday. Kind of take a little bit of a breather. Hopefully we'll be back depending on how the PQ goes the week after. We probably will be back because Alex and I are both going to the same PQ, so the probability that we're going to want to talk about it when we come back is probably pretty high. So I thought it would be nice to give the guys a break for like a week. Let's spend some time with the families. We figure you probably won't be consuming podcasts at that point anyway, so that's kind of cool. In the meantime, we'll be working on kind of some fun decks, more fun decks, but that's what we're doing tonight. Like I decided, I was like, you know what we're going to do is we're going to do two topics. The first topic is we got a couple of, we got one viewer submitted deck list, and then I found another one that I found interesting that I wanted to go over. And what we're going to do is kind of talk a little bit about evaluating your deck and analyzing your deck. And so we got two decks. We're going to go over the principles of how to evaluate your deck, and then we're going to talk about how we would change these two decks up to give you kind of some pointers if you want to play. And then I have a completely for fun segment. I built two silly decks, Wookiees and a droid deck, and we're gonna be just like I'm gonna have fun and talk about how you can build thematic decks. They could be okay to play at your locals, and I don't know. It's gonna be one of those things where I think like I want to build like a small tournament around who can have like the most thematic deck, and that type of thing to try to bring people in, because I think that's like a really fun thing to do. Like let's build really crazy thematic style decks, and like that's Star Wars. So anyway, that's kind of what we're going to talk about tonight. Without further ado, let me bring in my co-host for the evening. Please welcome to the show the bench warmer himself, Mr. Alex Jones. How are you?
Christ, don't call me Alex Jones. I'm doing okay. I just got back actually from your side of the state, just Christmas stuff. So I am tired, but I am ready.
Fair enough. Also joining me on mic tonight is JJ. You got rid of the hat? Did that make the Lions win this week? Because you got rid of the hat?
I've never seen such abysmal play out of the Giants today that I just decided it wasn't the effort to stand, walk about 25 feet to go grab my hat and put it on. So I am hatless for today. So it's okay. Yeah.
What you should do is message Charles and be like, hey, look, Tanner's not wearing a hat. I'm not wearing a hat today. He used to always like say, hey, why do you always wear a hat? Why do you always wear a hat? It's like, well, I'm lazy. I don't want to do my hair. I don't have my hair long enough anymore to pull into a ponytail like I used to be able to. So well, hopefully you all had a good weekend. I have been playing some different decks. I'm still trying to decide what I want to play for the PQ. I'm trying to decide if I want to go what I would consider the more Alex route and look at like decks that I find a little bit more fun, or if I want to go the route of I want to try to actually win at the PQ. So I'm having a really hard time making that decision. So I was playing a bunch of decks this weekend, trying to figure out where I want to go, because like I kind of feel I'm gonna get stuck playing Django, and I don't know if I want to do that, because I really like playing Thrawn so much, and I've been actually playing some Anakin Blue, and that deck's actually a lot more fun to navigate than originally I thought. Like I like it better than when I played Han Blue. I don't know how you all feel about that, but that deck itself just kind of feels a little bit more fun to play overall. And I'm contemplating Anakin Blue. We'll see. What'd you all do this week?
Yeah, no, like I said, it's just get busy doing Christmas stuff and cleaning and all that stuff. We actually had a draft that I ran on Monday, so I haven't played Constructed in quite a bit. I've just been brewing up a couple decks, seeing what I want to run for the PQ, because I just not realize it's like 2 weeks away. Whoops.
What do you have in contention for the PQ? Can we ask that, or is it like some weird secret tech?
No, I'm just working. It's gonna be actually I'm looking at like Hero Blue a lot, which is kind of weird because like Ray still intrigues me, Yoda intrigues me, my Boba Fett deck I like a lot. Rather be I'm leaning more towards blue than yellow, but yellow is a blast to play. Yeah, I mean like I played a little bit of yellow Palpatine, and that's all fine. I just I don't know. I haven't really done much villain stuff now that I think about it. It's kind of weird.
JJ, what were you up to? Anything fun?
Yeah, just prepping for the holidays here. There's been a lot to do over the last few weeks besides recovering from food poisoning. But as far as like decks go and stuff, I've actually been taking a look a lot more at Nuke Gunray. Just trying to get a lot more of the exploit triggers to go because I'm really liking this last new deck there. And then also tinkering with IG a lot more as well, trying to get him to work well since he has some new toys now, but haven't done much testing with the IG deck as of yet.
That would be another droid deck that we could build. That might be a little bit fun, but
heck yeah, man.
All right, so you guys want to do the fun thematic decks first, or do you want to go through our academy training first? Which do you guys want to do? How about that?
Let's just do the academy training first.
Yeah, let's do some academy training.
Get the work out of the way.
All right. All right. Welcome to this academy training. How to evaluate your deck, because it's probably a thing. I know I have to do it a lot. I know a lot of times we have to do it to JJ, who likes to just run a one-off card all the time. Which we're gonna see tonight, and we're gonna talk about that as well. But what I wanted to do is focus this academy training. It might not even be that long of one, but I kind of wanted to focus just a little bit about like evaluating a deck, like understanding, what's the goal of the deck, right? Do we need ratios? Like, is there a specific ratio? I don't know. I believe there's a ratio between different card types, that you want to have. Talk a little bit about mid, early game, late game type cards, and then we'll talk a little bit about sideboarding. I would highly encourage you to go back and watch the academy training we did on the last episode, where we actually talked about PQ preparation and sideboarding. We went into a lot of sideboarding in that discussion, so we'll probably be a little bit later in sideboarding, but it is a thing that we have to do when we want to evaluate a deck. So I think the first thing, like, to me, the first thing when you want to evaluate a deck is, like, what is your goal for the deck, right? I don't know about you guys, but, like, to me, like, I want to know what my goal is for the deck. Do I want to have fun? Do I want to run only the cards I own? That's a thing, right? JJ definitely does not have a full collection of everything. And so, like, JJ, when he runs one off sometimes, just because he's like, well, I only own one of these damn things. Like, I don't know what you want me to do.
Yep.
And so that's a very real thing. And I think, like, especially, like, this isn't whether you're going to go to a PQ or not. This is just kind of evaluating how your deck kind of works. So I don't know, Alex, what do you think? When you talk about, like, evaluating your deck for your goals, what's like the first thing that comes to mind for you?
So usually it's like, is there something cool combo wise, like concept wise, between two colors that I want to do? And that's usually like, yeah, cool, why not? And then you build out a deck and you're like, oh, this is just utter trash. But sometimes you're just like, oh, hey, I might be onto something. And then you decide, hey, am I leaning more towards aggro? Is my like end game really good? Do I want to play control? And if both of those are no, it's usually just a mid-range deck where you're just like, I'm going to survive the aggro, and then just win after that, and then hope we don't get into like the deep end game where they're just dropping devastators on me every turn. So that's like usually how I decide it. I'll just be like, hey, Boba Fett's kind of interesting. I could do blue because blue green hero is really good. Oh, I could do yellow because there's a lot of ambush and that triggers his ability. And then my ambush units get hit for 1 higher, and that's really strong because that 1 damage threshold matters a lot. So then you build a deck out of that, and then you're just like, okay, this is passable. So really, just I probably have it a backwards where I'm just like, let's think of something really fun and then build a deck around that. Where most people are like, I'm going to build an aggro deck or a mid range deck. These are my favorite leaders, or these are the best leaders I think. Like, I'm going to build a mid-range deck. It's going to be Anakin. And then choose a color from there.
Fair enough. JJ, how about you? Do you have like a specific thing when you think about goals that you're looking to do? Like,
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So the first thing when I'm building a deck there is obviously, I'm taking a look at, do I have enough of a balance in the deck that I'm playing with to make sure that it's consistent over time, right? I think that was one of my weaknesses when I used to list build early on, mainly because it was like looking at all these new toys. I'm like, man, I want to get this combo in there and I want to get this combo in there. But then I would never draw the cards that I need exactly when I need them in order for me to pull out those combos. And then there'll be times where I needed more lower cost cards to help me at least build a game state on my side or board state on my side, a presence where I can at least, react to my opponent until I bring out, the big play. And, it's finding that balance of, working to build to what you want to achieve with the deck, and also having good, efficient pieces in your deck and the right amount of them in order for you to successfully play a game versus whatever type of list that you're looking to play against or are looking to defend against.
Fair enough. And I think kind of like for me, it's kind of very similar type thing. Like I'm a little bit more how do I win oriented than other people are, and I'm probably not the best deck builder in the world. That's was very evident in Destiny. I let other people build decks and then I played them, and that was the thing. This content feels a little bit different. I'm a little bit more advantageous about building decks than I had been before. And maybe it's just because during X-Wing, when we had X-Wing, and do you remember like the 2.0 days in X-Wing? Like we were like, it was like list building central for like a month. Like you just like new points got dropped. You're like, oh, I could do this and fit all these things together. And then you would put it on the table and you're like, oh, this doesn't work. What the hell is wrong with me? Why would I think 8 vultures was a good idea? Let me add some bombers in there, and then next thing you know, you win everything. You top at tournaments after only playing the game for 3 months, and you're like, oh, well, this is too good of a deck or too good of a list. But anyway, so like my goals typically like is, am I here to have fun? Do I want to piss somebody off? And like, do I think this can win competitively? That's usually kind of where my mind moves towards. I always think of that second one of, do I want to piss somebody off when I play? Because I play sometimes some very hard controlled decks, and I am not the funnest. It's not the funnest deck to play against. Like when they drop a unit and can't use it because I either tap the unit down or just kill the units, or they flip their leader and I super laser blast their Palpatine, because why would you wait till late resources to flip Palpatine if you know I probably have a super laser blast? But
user error.
Yeah, like you took my Vader. Oh well, I'm just gonna super laser blast the board. But anyway, those are kind of like the goals, and I think that's the big thing, is understanding where, like, what do you want your deck to do? How do you want it to feel? We talked a little bit last week about prepping for a PQ, right? But your goals here don't have to be, I want to win. That's just a Tanner thing. I'm just weird like that. Like, that's me. You can have a goal of, I want something to be thematic. I want it to be somewhat competitive and thematic, and that's a thing. Another thing is that we want to talk a little bit about is, before we get into like first churn, late churn, blah blah blah, is what is the maths? What is your maths? What are your ratios? And I learned something new today that I did not know. There is a Magic the Gathering 75% concept. I've never heard of that. Have either of you heard of this concept before?
No, I haven't.
I maybe not by that name. I don't know.
So what it is like the way you build, like most people want to build a deck to be like super proficient, right? Like basically you want 100% proficiency. You want it to be able to flow, everything to work really well. 75% means you're building a deck to be 75% efficient against the majority of the field. And that 25% is like your spice, or like what you can build into your deck that A, will surprise people, will make people like left out, still fits into your ratios, but maybe like a little swingy. Like, for example, JJ throwing one Dooku in a red-green deck. Like, that's going to cost them 9 to play, but they're not expecting that. So I guess it's like a Magic the Gathering thing, which I didn't know until I was looking for images and I Googled like maths and card games, and that came up. And that was like a thing. And it's like there's like a whole theory behind this, which is crazy. But understanding what your math ratios are. So like the first thing is like you have units, events, upgrades, and units, events, and upgrades. That's it, right? That's all the types of cards we have.
Yeah.
You're probably getting hung up because there's like ground units and stuff.
Yeah. That's what I meant to say. Yeah. Thank you. So, Alex, do you have a preferred ratio build for like decks? Like, do you have to have so many like events that you play, or could you just run a deck with 0 events in it? Could you run the deck? You can run a deck without space units, but that seems silly to me. So,
so does running a deck without events. I will say that like, unless it's a very, very specific kind of deck, something like a red blue Bosk, like yellow blue Thrawn, that kind of stuff, where it's like you have a ton of events. I think usually my decks are like at like 35 units or so, between like 30 and 35 units. It's like yeah, like the Palpatine, like the red Palpatine deck, I think that had like 15 not units in it, right? And we're just like, I personally try to hit at least 10, usually 12 space units. You know, that seems like a pretty solid one. You want like a low drop, kind of like 2 mid drops, and maybe like an end game drop, depending on how you're building your deck. If it's like a mid-range deck, you want to do that. If it's an aggro deck, depending on what cards, you probably go lower curve for that, or skip the high ones. So yeah, like for me, like roughly 12 space units, usually between 11 and like 13 first turn plays. Because like mathematically, hey, you have a 50 card deck, you're drawing 6 of them. Roughly 1 in 10-ish cards should probably be a first turn play. So yeah, if I'm doing like a standard, like maybe just a middle of the road mid-range deck, I want like, you know, about 11 to 12 first turn plays, 11 to 12 space units, fill out the roster, and probably, you know, about 12 to 15 events / upgrades. But again, that, you know, that modulates. If you're building like a Mandalorian deck or a Gar-Saxon deck, you definitely want more upgrades. If you're building, you know, a heavy control deck, you definitely want more like events. So they're like the rough ratios I have.
Yeah, which is good, because I think that's like important, like to understand, because like when I build a deck, that's like I have a hard time sometimes. Like I look at my events and I go, I only picked 6 events. What's wrong with me? Why don't I want more? I was like, well, I don't need more events because I've got Sentinels in there, or I'm using my units to trade up with. So why do I need all these events? But I think that like that you can't always count on it. And like now that we understand how to play this game a little bit more, like we've been at this is a year. And one of the things that we'll do in the new year is we'll kind of celebrate and talk about where we feel that this game will go and things like that. And like that's one of the things that like you have to understand is, if like, why do I only want 6 events? Is that because I don't like to play events? That's usually why, right? I would rather play units to advance my deck, but you have to play events sometimes, whether they are helping you get the damage you need, like in Django or Sabine, right? Or do I need to play events to control the board so that somebody can't drop 3, you know, units in like a turn and I don't have a way to deal with it? Like the thing that happens. Another thing that they talk about, like understanding the maths and ratios, right, is like understanding the ratios of turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, turn 4, turn 5, that type of play. And, you know, like, I don't know, like that's another thing. Alex, do you have like a set of like, do you like, for me, the standard is I would like to have no less than 10 turn 1 plays ever. Like like if I'm run, no matter what type of deck I'm running. Like if I'm like when I run Han Yellow, I consider like 3 drops turn 1 plays. So I run a little bit heavier unit ratio in my Han Yellow deck. But for example, even Bosk needs turn 1 plays. They don't have to be units. They could just be, I don't know what you would play turn 1 with Bosk. If like Dr. Pershing, that's what you want to play and hope
Like
they kill
a top
him.
target or a death mark. Your bounties.
Yeah. So anyway, so what's your ratios? Like I to me, 10 is the minimum, and I feel comfortable with 12 to 13 turn 1 plays. And we're talking a 50 card deck right now. So.
Yeah. Like JJ, I mean, I already said like I usually do between 11 and 13. So like JJ, I'm not sure what kind of decks you tend to run. It seems like you run a little bit lower to the curve.
Yeah, I tend to try to stack more in towards the middle on there. As first turn plays, I tend to be lower between 9 to 10 cards, between space and ground. It makes that first turn a little more dicey. But overall, mid game, I usually tend to get the cards that I need, and mainly because the decks I were playing, I wanted to have more of those mid-range units that were a little bit cheaper. I know I ran the red Han with blue for such a long time, and I wanted to have cheaper units in there that could survive Han's ability and just deploy them out quickly when I needed them to. So I stacked heavy like that for a while. Same thing with like Tarkin. But when I wasn't playing those cards, I would probably focus more on just cheap Sentinel units to start off with, and then work my way with ramp, and then stack more heavily on the higher end side and kind of keep more events in between to deal with like units in between until I reach some of those higher units up there. So in those cases, I was a little more heavy on the event side than what actual like ground units. And then of course, Sentinel pieces for space and ground. Overall, for my mix, it really depends on the leader that I'm playing with. I'm not afraid to kind of mix up the ratios, although it does sacrifice consistency. But that's right about the average from where I play around with.
Dangerous game.
Yeah, you're a little
under
bit
10,
more than me. Yeah, I won't go under 10 ever. Yeah, and I think like for me, like I typically feel comfortable between 12 and 13, depending on the type of deck I'm running. If I'm running a little bit more of an aggro deck, I like typically a little bit more. I like closer to 14 to 15 turn 1 to turn 2 plays, like that. I typically like once I get into my mid range, if I'm running more of an aggro, I like to have most of the rest of my deck, and I like have very little top end in like an aggro style deck. Like my aggro decks don't typically go over 7. I do sideboard a little bit. We'll get to that in a minute, Leo. Like my Django deck sideboards in Pelps because people weren't playing Pelp in Django. In my opinion, until I played it, was not like a thing people were thinking of. But it's a great sideboard card to play, like when you have to play in like against stuff, longer games, and like you need to be able to take out something, and it helps clear some of their sentinels and stuff like that. If you're playing Django, it taps at least one of them down. But anyway, you can tap an Avenger down. You're very happy as a Django player. That's like one of my favorite plays to do is be able to tap an Avenger down. Say, nope, you can't kill my unit today. But that's kind of where I land. I would talk a little bit about, like different cards and stuff like that. So like we've talked about like the ratios, but is there any other thing that goes into the maths that I'm missing that you guys can think of?
Yeah, I mean, like, again, make sure you have enough space units to keep your opponent honest.
Yeah.
I think most people are running a little bit more now because of like the Django space decks. But even Sabine has like a fair amount of space units. Got the A-Wings and both, like in yellow you got like the Falcons, and green you have kind of like Prayed Hopes and stuff. I mean, that's a lot less attacking, but you get the wing leaders and the X wings and the A wings and all that kind of stuff. So, for aggro, maybe a couple 6-7 drops for mid range. In a lot of my decks, I'm just like, okay, if this is gonna go long here, I'm gonna have this Crate Dragon. If it's gonna go long, here's my Zillow Beast. Just try to keep those handy.
Yeah.
Or at least in your sideboard, just so you have like some sort of out for a really long game.
Yeah.
All right. We'll talk a little bit about sideboarding, and then why don't we actually get into like evaluating some decks? Because I find that funner. Anyway, or more fun. I should say more fun, because funner is not a word. It might be a word if I just made it up. So understanding sideboarding, right? Like we talked a little bit about this in our other segment, but what cards are great into the matchup? What spice do you want? Are you going to embrace, dealing with mill? Do you want to swap cards out? Because in my opinion, you should always swap cards out. You should not just count that your deck is that tailored to win every single matchup. I could be wrong. I don't know. Alex, have you ever not sideboarded with a deck?
If I won and I'm like, okay, I could probably roll this back. I don't need to sideboard too much. Yeah, like very rarely. But like my sideboarding style is just like, hey, these extra cards can help versus aggro. Hey, these extra cards can help versus control. Hey, these cards can help a little bit in the mid-range game. So it's like, I'll swap out something innocuous for something whatever. It's like, oh, I'll swap my Yularans out for a Yoda or something. Need the extra restore here or there. So nothing crazy like that. So occasionally I'm just like, oh, whatever, I'm not going to sideboard. But a lot of the times it's like, yeah, I brought these cards for a reason. I want to use them.
Awesome. JJ, sideboarding tips, things that you do when you create a sideboard. You could do one-offs in sideboard and nobody will judge you.
Yeah. So for me, sideboards, I definitely use it more as the utility box. You're putting in cards in there that kind of help compensate for weaknesses and what you're playing there. I know for me, one of the things that I always try to put in there are restocks in case I face against like a heavy mill deck, or the Mandalorian fighters, which are great space units that deploy and can discard an attachment for like one of your enemies. Definitely a really great way to like destroy a Darksaber, for instance. Very cheap way, reliable, and like I just like to have those on there just because they just have a lot of utility on there. It's definitely very useful when you're finding in your first playthrough versus your opponent. If you're and I'm talking specifically tournament wise, not so much when it's just casual, but when you on your first round you encounter cards that you're just not quite prepared for, you don't have an answer to in your deck, just having those cards available to you on your side for the just in case, like having more advanced spells in there for like dealing with high priority threats or big threats that are out there, or having a couple of extra traitors in there to take advantage of your opponent's aggressive units there, or even having stuff like choose a side, especially if you have an extra amount of units that you can just swap off with, like give a battle droid token for like a crate dragon or something. Just having that extra utility as a threat for those second and third rounds, so that way you can take advantage and be flexible for those encounters.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think that's a kind of a good strategy. Why don't we get into some decks now? Like we had a deck called Palpatine's Cheese Deck, Cheese Tax, and do not sing the song. I don't know if that's a copyrighted song or not. Please. And so this one is. This one is definitely this. So we haven't talked a lot about Chancellor Palpatine a lot. So I think, that's kind of what we want to get into a little bit tonight. I think this is fun. I would always talk about Chancellor Palpatine. But essentially the individual that submitted this talked a little bit about that they have a PQ on the 12th. and they have 0 to minimum prep for it. So they don't really care to be a tryhard basically this time, and they are essentially looking to play this deck because they have a showcase. So good reason to play the deck. We have a nice showcase, so you should come to the Lansing one, and we can make some trades for that showcase. Anyway, the main idea is to just control them, stall them, and then mess around with being cheesy towards the end and winning it with their end game. Their 2 questions are: is the deck idea reasonable? If it is reasonable, are there any suggestions or improvements? They did clarify the one-offs are mostly because they have a hyperfoil and they would like to theoretically use the hyperfoil. So I don't know, JJ. Why don't you read the deck, JJ, and then we'll what we'll do is we'll kind of talk a little bit about it with some of the principles we talked about a few minutes ago.
Yeah, so we got we got the new Chancellor Palpatine in Navarro City deck here. Got 3 copies of the Alliance Dispatcher, 1 copy of the Clone Deserter, 1 copy of the Battlefield Marines, 2 copies of No Good to Me Dead, 2 Leia Organas, 3 of the new R2D2 droids there. We got 3 copies there of Power Malfunctions. We got 1 copy of Echo Base Defenders, 3 copies of the Phase 3 Dark Troopers, 3 Super Laser Techs, 3 Triple Dark Raids, 1 copy of Tech, 3 copies of the Phase 2 Clone Troopers, 3 copies of Bright Hope, 2 modded cohorts, 2 Overwhelming Barrages, 3 copies of the Agent Ocean Patrol Fighter, 3 copies of the Pirate Battle Tank, 2 copies of Home One, and 3 copies of the Reinforcement Walker, and then lastly 3 copies of Devastator. And then on the sideboard we got 3 copies there of
Reprocessed.
Yeah, there you go, Reprocessed. Thanks.
They didn't say what the reprocess was for. I'm assuming that's just like kind of a card that you would put in there. So JJ, this is like a one-off deck. This is your dream right here.
Yeah, he's definitely got a very good way to have like a good opening hand, right? He's got a lot of cheap units on there that you can choose to resource early on, and later on you can pull up with tech there. You got a lot of great options with Triple Dark Raid, where you can bring in some of those units really fast later on, especially with like the Pirate Battle Tank up there being a really top contender on there. You have a lot of options there to really help trigger for the Chancellor Palpatine side to go back to the Sidious Swarm on that side, especially that interaction with Sidious and the Super Laser Tech to flip it back to Chancellor Palpatine. I like that particular combo a lot there. It does feel like you could have probably put in a few more Echo-based defenders. I think those are a little more valuable in this deck, more so than the Battlefield Marine or the Clone Deserter, mainly because you had that Sentinel piece early on. I would have probably liked to have more of those there just to help just be that piece on the ground to help absorb some of that incoming fire that's coming in there, and also to help possibly protect the future use of tech that you're going to have out on the table on there. But I do like the availability of a lot of these units, especially as you're getting into more like higher resource counts. You're able to put multiple of these out there on the board and have a pretty decent board stage. And it's decent overall.
Alex, so let's go back to our principles, things that we kind of talked about when we're building a deck, right? So they told us what their goal was. They aren't like super hardcore into how do I make this like the best deck ever. I will tell you, I don't know for sure why the Echo Defender is only a 1-of in there. I believe it's mainly
it's the one hyperfoil.
Yeah, it's the hyperfoil, and I would say it's mainly because like when you hit that third research turn, you usually are trying to flip anyway. Except for I think if you play that 1-cost unit. I do really like the private manufacturing actually in this deck, and I kind of never thought about it. I know a lot of people are down on that, but you could play that after you flip because you're going to get a token unit and you're kind of guaranteed to be able to draw the extra cards. You only need to get 1 of them off. I don't think 3 of them are probably necessary, but that's just my opinion. So, Alex, what do you think? What are some of your thoughts on the deck and why? So,
Okay, so with Palpatine, you do want to flip him fairly frequently, right? Like that's the reason you brought Palpatine. Um, so things like Battlefield Marines tend to just live through other people's first turn plays, and especially like R2D2. Um, so you're probably not going to be able to kill a hero unit to flip. And you kind of want to because you have a bunch of the good 3-drop villainy cards. Like, I mean, Super Laser Attack's just incredible, right?
Oh yeah.
You can kill him with the Geonosia's Patrol Fighter, which is a fantastic card, and kind of, I would assume, to be like a staple in any Chancellor Palpatine decks because you have to have some sort of out to kill your own units if your opponent's not cooperating with you.
Yep.
So in set 1, they had the Lothal Insurgents. They're 3 2-drops for 2. That is important because 1, they hit back for 3, which is generally the health of a decent first turn play. But also, they have 2 health, which means they generally die to most other first turn drops, which is good with Palpatine. They also have an extra benefit of like, hey, if you just played another card this phase, your opponent just dumps a card and draws a new one. So I would recommend probably taking out things like the Battlefield Marine or the Clone Deserter, especially just because you don't really want to give your opponent an extra card if you don't have to. Like R2D2 is fine because you can dig, and I like Leia because she can ready a resource or exhaust something. It's very clutch, and also having 2 help is nice for the trading. The Alliance Dispatcher is kind of interesting. Spicy, I get it. I feel like without having Luke to give them a shield, they're just like, oh, my opponent just kills it immediately. But I guess that's also kind of what you want in Chancellor Palpatine. So maybe not. Maybe it's not a bad call. The other thing about this deck in particular is the Triple Dark Raid's a little bit awkward. Because I mean, your vehicles are like later drops, which is fine because Triple Dark lets you play it for 2 less. But also, I don't know. You don't have any lower drops, so like you have, what is that, 9, 12, 14 vehicles in this deck. And like if you hit one off the top 7 cards and you're not at like 8 resources for a Devastator, you're kind of screwed. Right? So maybe either put in some more vehicles, like I'm not sure if you have Falcons or like TIE Defenders are not generally a bad call. The Adelphis are really cool with Triple Dark Raid to play them and then get an immediate attack off. It could be themselves too, right? Because they come in ready. So that's another option. Because I'm not sure, like, playing Triple Dark Raid and then dropping a Bright Hope is terribly impactful of a play. I mean, it's nice to have a Space Sentinel. From what I've like kind of played and what I've seen, like the 3s are usually like villainy cards and like the 5s are villainy cards. And then you kind of blend some other cards in between. So I don't know, having things like Plo Koon, I think would help the deck a lot just because he's just kind of a house of a card. I like Plo Koon a lot. I do like having Sentinels. But also like your later on drops like Han Solo or Cad Bane are just like incredible, like we're turning this game around cards. So I'd recommend at least maybe having a couple of those. If you cut like the Triple Dark Raid, you don't need to run like a lot of vehicles. That might get you enough deck space to run things like Han Solo and Cad Bane and maybe an Avenger, or not an Avenger, the Relentless. Sorry, I like Relentless. Underrated card.
I was gonna say, like, for me, I think like the big thing that I would do is I would move those pirate tanks to the sideboard, and I would move the Devastators to the sideboard, and then like play with our principles that we talked about, right? Like understanding that we want a little bit more events than we have. I think there's a few more events that I would add into there. I would definitely run 3 no good to me deads personally. And I would drop the triple dark raids completely. And that's I understand why why people want them, and if you could get your later drops out, like if you could get that Devastator out early, that is really good. But the problem is there's so much inefficiency, in my opinion, because of Palp or Chancellor. Sorry, Chancellor Palpatine. It's a lot more inefficient. You're not running neutral. So if they were all neutral, I would be okay with it a little bit more. But not without having that neutral, man. Like, if you're on that wrong side, your sequencing just becomes super off. So, if it were me, I would drop all the triple dark raids because I don't actually think they benefit you in any way, shape. And then I would add in, I don't know, like,
Cad Banes,
well, I would add Cad Banes in 100%. Like, I agree with you, I'd put 2 Relentless in 100%, and I would move the Devastators to the sideboard, and I would move the Pirate Tanks to the sideboard immediately. Like, those ones, just dump them off, and I would put 2 Relentless in, 2 Cad Banes, 2 Han Solos, and I would then be a little bit more leaning towards you can run like the U-Wing, what's that called? U-Wing reinforcement if you really want to have a triple dark raid like effect. But again, you're still being dicey because you're still like, what side are you going to be on? Like, you know, like it does
nice.
It does avoid the cost though, right? Like, you don't have to pay the penalty with it, right? So you can still use that to play your Cad Banes. Like, that is a thing.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, you ignore the aspect penalties. It's playing for free, so you ignore the aspect penalties for playing villain cards off U-Wing reinforcements. You just have to make sure you're on the hero side.
Yes.
to flip over there.
Yep. And I think logically, if you tailor your deck a little bit more on that hero side, I think logically the biggest thing that I see is you don't have a ton of mid-range. You have a lot of low drops, and your high end is like really high end. I'm not opposed to the walkers. I guess I would have to test it because the walkers you could play on either side.
Yeah, I think the walkers are fine. It's just, the taking out the triple dark. So the walkers are a little bit awkward because of that. Yeah. But like they're still fantastic cards. They help you heal, and you have a draw engine, so you probably won't. You're probably just going to be healing with that. You don't need to draw even more cards with them. Yeah, but like yellow is a lot of ambush. Consider that like Plo Koon and Forlom are pretty solid. I mean, Zuckuss isn't a bad card by any means. He's 6/6 for 5 with Saboteur, and then you get a marginal benefit if you have Forlom in there. It's just, between the modded cohorts, the Plo Koons, the Forloms, you can like actually just do a lot of ambush. And Han, I mean, like Maul's also a card too, right? Like,
yep. I think Maul's if it were me, that's how I would go. I would treat this a little bit more like a U-Wing reinforcement, because then you can use that card between 7 and 8 resources and just come out like ahead with whatever you play. Like, now you don't got to really worry as much about it. And the other thing I would think of, like, you don't have Colonel Yularen in there. You actually have quite a few green units. Colonel Yularen is like a 2-cost neutral card. He doesn't benefit Palpatine as much, because he's not hero, but he could be a good sideboard card. Or you could go with a 3-cost. Is it Colonel? It's not Colonel. What is it? Admiral Yularen.
Admiral Yularen. Yeah.
He got demoted.
He got demoted. He got demoted when he went backwards. When he went backwards in time, baby. That was his original ranking when he was good. When he was a good guy, or a supposed good guy. Was he ever a good guy, JJ? I don't actually. They don't really flesh that out, do they?
Yeah. No, not really.
There you go, Star Wars. We need a movie. Disney, we need a movie. We need a Colonel Yularen movie. That's what I want.
We need an ISB thriller. Is what we need, man.
Ooh.
Yes.
Ooh, yes. Ooh. Man, you're killing it there. So anyway, I agree with Alex. I like the ambush a little bit more. I do prefer Relentless main board, just period. If you're going to use some of that ramp, let's put some Relentless in there. I would either add some Frozen and Carbonites, or you can add some Waylays, something in there that might be beneficial to help keep some of the removal down. But I don't know. I would also put another I would at least run 2 Echo-based defenders. Like, even if you got 1 hyperfoil, run a normal one because that's still a good card to be able to run.
Also, like, there's that 4-drop exploit guy. The 4/5 exploit
oh,
1.
yes, I have that in my
he's
droid
great.
deck. Yes,
The infiltrated
Infiltrator.
demolisher. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they're a 4/5 with exploit 1. So if you're on hero side, you can just kill one of your guys off and then still play it for 4, which isn't the worst because the 4/5 saboteur. And then you can flip Palpatine, or like, if you just have Palpatine out, you can just drop them for 2. So let's just look out for like exploit 2 in order to like take out your own hero units as well. Like that, I think that's pretty solid.
Yeah.
Or like merciless contest actually too, right?
Mhm.
With the ability card to like kill one of theirs, kill one of yours. It works. I mean, you have to pay the extra tax if you're on the hero side, but it's also a cheap villainy card if they don't have like no good to be, like if you don't have no good to be dead merciless contest for 3 to flip Palp back to the hero side and kill one of their units. Doesn't seem terribly bad.
Yeah. And I do. I'm gonna go back to. I really think going back to the, like, you have to at least have some 4-LOM. You have to have some mid range, some mid tier, like villain cards in here, because otherwise, like right now, you've got that you could play on turn 3 or 4. Like you've got 6 cards that you could play that let you flip back, and if you can't flip back, that's a problem because you got to have villain units to be able to flip back. So. All right. Well, hopefully that helps you a little bit. That was fun. I like that. I do like this deck. I do actually like Chancellor, and I don't know. Maybe we'll do like a tournament where everybody has to run a Chancellor Palpatine deck. That would be fun. Everybody plays Chancellor Palpatine. All right. The next one was not a user submitted one. This was a Rex like double command deck with a 24 health base, and I was like, all right, how did this thing take down a store showdown? And then I was looking through my Hunter deck, and this shares a lot of similarities with my Hunter deck. And so I thought, all right, let's talk about this deck. I think it's going to be fun to talk about, and maybe there's I could see a few changes I would personally make in this, but we could talk a little bit about it. I'm going to go ahead and say off the bat, the sideboard is a Tanner sideboard. They did not have a sideboard in there, and they essentially stated in their statement that sideboards are based on what your meta is. So I built a sideboard of things that I would feel comfortable bringing as options, especially because this is a very space light deck. So, Alex, why don't you go over? Why don't you read off the deck, and then let's talk about it.
So this is a mono green Captain Rex deck with the droid manufactory, the 24 health base of when you flip your leader, you create 2 battle droid tokens, thus giving you instant coordinate. So this has triple clone deserter, double timely intervention, triple battlefield marine, triple frontline shuttle, triple echo, double Admiral Akbar, triple Echo-based Defender, double Zendari Peacekeeper, double Admiral Yularen, triple Bright Hope, triple Command, triple the 4-cost Echo, triple Shakti, double Traitorous, triple Ayla, triple Clone Commander Cody, triple Captain Rex unit, double Ewing Reinforcement, and double Home 1. And in Tanner's sideboard, if you really want me to go through that, it is triple Colonel Yularen.
Come on, I know how to build decks, kind of.
The 3rd copy of the Zendari Peacekeeper, 2 of the Republic Arcs, 2 Adelphi Patrol Wings, and then 2 of the Marauder. So, I mean, very straightforward. Flood the board with as much as you can. Make sure they're troopers, because that's what Rex gives extra health to. And try to go from there. I've seen a couple like mono green Rex decks out there. I think they're fine. I just also think people are focusing a little bit on too many of the wrong cards. But I'll let you guys kind of talk about this deck first.
All right. So JJ, let's go through JJ's thoughts there, so that way, like, it's not on Tanner. It's not the Tanner show.
Yeah, I think that honestly there could be a couple of changes here that can make it more effective. Like the one thing I see here is that you really don't have too big of a closing piece on here for Captain Rex. You do have a couple of really good mid range choices between Shakti and Ayla Sakura and such. However, these are pieces that can easily be taken care of, but a lot of pieces that are in the same range there. I think kind of having a couple of options to really close out a game is necessary, especially in the Captain Rex decks here. Having either a couple of reinforcement walkers to help you at least recover some health towards the late game if you're facing against an aggressive list is definitely something I would consider in this particular deck here. The other thing I would also include on here is probably adding in or main boarding some of those Adelphi wing troopers just have more of a space presence as well. I think those would probably be more beneficial in here, mainly because you're relying mainly on Bright Hope to beat that Sentinel piece in space until you can bring out Home One. Which, don't get me wrong, Home One is a fantastic ship to have for the late game as well. But it leaves you pretty shaky on the space side there for if you're having to face a more space focused list there on the end there. I do like the addition of the Admiral Yularen and Akbar along with the Sundari Peacekeepers there. I think those are great pieces for this particular deck here. But overall, it just feels like they have a lot of great starter pieces and really great mid pieces, but the end game is where I feel like this kind of like loses its fire towards the end.
Yeah, I think like for me the big thing is like I like the traitoresses. I understand the logic in them, and I don't like. I mean, we've obviously used them very effectively. Like, and this deck is not built so you have to always have a million units. You can you can use his like Rex's ability to generate units. Like, so you don't have to play a unit and deplete your hand. So you don't actually have to worry as much about like a mill deck, in my opinion, as much. But like, I don't know. So like, to me, they said the frontline shuttle, which is something we've not seen very much, is like kind of the crux.
Anakin deck. That's about it.
Yeah, I get it. I understand what it's supposed to do, but like the way that they described it is that specific card is a great turn 1 play because then your turn 2 play you can ready it and like attack with it. And I don't know. Like I'm personally not sold on that unit whatsoever. Maybe in this deck it works really well. It's just that's a weird card for me. I also do not like Captain Rex. I don't understand the logic of Captain Rex. He's a 6 cost 4/4. I don't know. There's no Syndicate lackeys in here. Where's my Syndicate lackeys? Like that's what they're called, right? They're not called Syndicate lackeys, are they? Yes, they are.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They're a double green, like 5 cost, like 5/5, right? Like,
yeah.
And they can be smuggled out. Enterprising lackeys
are the ambush guy.
All right, I don't care about those guys. The Enterprising lackeys, like that seems like that's a great card to put in here. I don't care if it's not a trooper. Like that's a great card because you could put it in as a smuggle. Like I would not run a double green deck without that card in it, just because it allows you to cycle cards. Like you could cycle things out of your thing. And maybe this is just the Palpatine player in me, right? In my Palpatine mind, command is meant for a resource and to cycle out the good shit that they killed. Right? And if I get an Enterprising lackeys and I can cycle out my home one that I resourced, I don't even care about tech. I can literally just pull the stupid card back out. So I don't know. My big thing is I don't like Captain Rex in here. I would put Syndicate lackey or not Enterprising lackeys in here over that every day of the week. I also don't know how many tokens things you're gonna have on the board. I don't really know if Shakti has a lot of value in the long run.
I don't mind Shakti in this kind of deck because Captain Rex does natively, get troopers out, and when he flips is another trooper.
True.
I get it. I'm actually it's kind of the ratios. I don't hate Captain Rex unit. I wouldn't run 3. Probably do 2, maybe a one-off. I also think, as much as it saddens me, I think Commander Cody's a little bit
Pricey.
not as good. It's 5-drop 4/4. Yes, with coordinate you get +1/+1 and overwhelm. That's exactly what this deck is trying to do. I just always found him super iffy for 5.
He's great in draft, but
yeah, he's not bad in draft. The triple Ayla is kind of weird to me because you don't actually have ECL, so you're trying to set her up. So I would probably do like a 2-off. I'd straight swap the frontline shuttles out for X-wings or something, right? Like, I don't. I mean, cool. You get to attack with your second turn play, which is marginally impactful, I guess. But you're also sacking one of your units off in the arena that you're super weak in. Not that a 1/3 is doing much in space, anyways. But like, if you have glaring space problems, pump Admiral Akbar up to 3, man. You drop him off U-wing reinforcements, and if you got clones, he's doing so much out-of-hand damage.
Yep. And that's actually funny because they, in their write-up, they said, do not ever resource Akbar. I was like, yeah, well, why do you not have 3?
You don't I would actually have like the modded cohorts too. I mean, 100% do 100% do the Enterprise and Lackeys, at least 2 of them, because those are just such incredible cards. But also like modded cohort is pretty nice. And if you're going for a lot of like health-based things here with like Yularen, throw a modded cohort down for 4 attack ambush and then have 5 health is super good.
Yeah. I would also have 3 Yullarens too. Like that would just be me. And I would probably contemplate running some sort of like an upgrade, maybe. I don't know. I guess I don't care about the upgrade as much. I don't know.
Like General's Blades, yeah. Actually, honestly, the Marauder is a really solid card if you were going to main deck this. Because it slots nicely between Bright Hope and Home 1, but also, like, if you have Captain Rex units, you get it off with Marauder if you deploy your leader, right?
Yep.
You can resource that. You got the 6 Echoes in there.
Yep.
And like it's just super useful to just I ramped for essentially free because you already have the Echoes there and you're already dumping cards out with Echo. The 4-drop cost, you're discarding them to give someone XP, and then you get like Marauder, and like that's like the whole shtick. Plus as an ambush unit in space, which is your weakest arena. And I understand like this deck's trying to like go really wide and just overwhelm with just sheer numbers. But you also, your damage output's not crazy high. So if you just swap some things around, you can build like a decent Rex deck like this. I'd probably do ECL over Droid Manufactory too, but if you're going to keep Droid Manufactory, I get it.
Yeah, and I like the Droid Manufactory does work very well, like with the Ayla stuff, or, like that, like.
Yeah, getting coordinate off.
You just immediately get it. You kind of also get it with the Codys. Like it's, I do get it because you could flip him, play Cody. You have those 2 droids, and now you got 4 units they got to deal with. And when they overwhelming barrage, you're gonna be sad. But I mean, other than that, you won't be sad.
Another reason not to run that Captain Rex unit is because you already spawned 2 of them with your flip.
Yeah, There's more higher end stuff in green that we could look at. I just, like I said, I kept the deck the way they built it, and then I put my sideboard in for things like I know I would like things I would either swap in or things that you need that are like the space is glaring weakness. I am very surprised they went 5-0 at a store tournament with that little space. That's just like, I mean, maybe this deck is fast enough that you don't give a shit, but I don't know.
Who knows?
So anyway, that's our discussion on, our Academy 101, where we talk a little bit about, like how do you evaluate a deck, what goes good in there. what doesn't go good in there. I mean, I will say, like, I do like playing double green. Like, it is fun. I love commands. I played Palpatine green for a long time, so like that was a thing I played a lot of, even in set 1. So I don't know. I think it's fun, and I think doing this type of thing, that's a good discussion, like, in my opinion, because it's not like maybe this Rex deck is never going to be PQ friendly. I don't know. Like, they did to go 5-0 at a Sword Showdown. If you tweak it, could you go, could you do a 5-3 at a PQ, a 5-2? Like, I don't know. Like, if you've had that good of success here, you might be able to find that you have success at a peak. So I like when we do these analyses because they're fun. I like it better when JJ gives me a deck and I can pick it apart because he has too many one-offs in it. But we should get you a hat. That's what I should get you for Christmas that says you're like the one-off king. Something like that. All right. Should we do something fun to close the show out with?
Oh, a hat that just says I'd rather be playing Twin Suns.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's a great idea, Alex.
There you go. Perfect.
All right. Somebody figure out how we could make hats that say that I would rather be playing Twin Sun. Let me call Danny up real quick and be like, hey, we got an idea for you. All right. Let's go to our For a Cause segment where Tanner built a couple of silly decks that are very thematic.
Play more.
All right. So I built 2 decks tonight that actually, I'll be honest with you, I almost didn't do the other segment. I almost just said, screw it, we're going to only do fun deck discussions. And then I got busy and didn't get to build any more thematic decks. So if either of you guys want to build a thematic deck just for poops and giggles, like, we could do that, not next week, but the week after. Like, we could do that. I find this stuff fun. This is, again, the stuff that, like, I somewhat enjoy. So I built a Grievous. He leaves his lair. It's a droid deck. It's pretty much an all droid deck. That was kind of the goal, was to build as close to a droid deck, which is hilarious because I was adding in cards that aren't droids. And I'm sitting there like, I gotta cut this card because it's not a droid. Poggle doesn't technically fit. He's not technically a droid, but he generates a droid. Can I like excuse that piece of it? And so there's a few cards in here that I just felt had to be included because the deck, like, you could just like overrun this deck if you're not careful. But the that merciless contest, like, that's hilarious that you mentioned that in our last segment, Alex, because in this, like, when I was building this, I was like, you know what? It's really hilarious when I sack a 1-cost droid and, or a 2-cost droid or something like that, do a damage to something and then make them sack one of theirs. I like that. That's hilarious. So anyway, I'll go over the deck real quick. This is my Grievous green deck. I got 2 Soulless ones because it's Grievous and you got to have Soulless 1 in here. Like, it's mandatory. Grievous has got to be able to fly that. That's his ship, baby.
And it works with his leader ability. Like, you just exhaust the leader side instead of using his action ability.
Yep. It's nice. It's actually weird and kitschy, and people don't think about that. But that's like a 3/2 for 1 cost. Like, it's pretty good. I like it a lot, actually. And then so I have 2 of those. I have 2 of the droid. I don't know, the stupid little droids that sit on rocks in X-Wing.
Vultures.
Yeah.
And they're not there for their ability. They're there literally for fodder. That's it. 3 No Good To Me Deads, 3 Viper Probe droids, 3 of the Separatist Commandos, 2 B1 security teams, 3 Phase 3 Dark Troopers. Here's my non-droid. 2 Black Sun Troopers or Starships, which you probably don't need, but I have a hard time building a green-yellow deck without those things. It's just weird for me. So I put 3 droid commandos, 3 of the Magna Guard Wing Leaders, 3 of the Elite P8s, 2 Waylays, 3 Merciless Contests, 3 of the Intimidators, because I think those are really good. I had to throw Grievous's bike in here. You could probably just go as a 1 of. You probably do not need a 2 of. Like, you probably don't, but it is kind of fun. to be able to put Grievous in his wheel bike. Just saying, like that's like one of the best things to do until they rivals fall you, and then you just cry a little bit on the inside. I have 2 overwhelming barrages, 2 Krakens, 2 of the tactical droid commanders. We can come back to this in a minute. Why I put those in there. 2 Kalanis, 1. This is for JJ specifically. 1 Tri-Fighter droid suppressor. That's all for JJ. We have 2 of the or the basically the spider droids, and 2 of the Hellfire droid tanks. My sideboard consists of 2 Bazines because I can't help myself. 2 Poggles, 2 of the TIE Phantoms. I threw 1 more spider droid in there. I just really like that card. Actually, if I'm gonna run a droid, I just like that card. I don't know. Maybe I just like the artwork on it. I don't know why. I just really like that card. 2 Relentless, and then 1 Devastator, obviously for the control. All right, guys, go ahead and pick my deck apart. Go ahead. It's very thematic. It's very separatist.
Yes. By all means, JJ, go ahead.
Where are the lightsabers? No, I'm kidding.
Because I don't have blue Grievous. Because Grievous and blue is not fun to play. I found that out.
Yeah. I actually like this a lot. It's definitely very, very much on theme. Having the all the droids on there. I absolutely love the droids or the vultures on there. I would have probably added in more of the bombers on there, the hyena bombers, because I think those are a lot more useful for space tech, especially in Grievous. From what I played so far, especially since you have quite a bit of separatist droids in here, being able to just deal that additional damage from playing additional units there is very useful. And then if you need to exploit them later on to bring in some of your bigger ones, is very, very handy on there. I do think that you have the right call with Kalani on there as well as Kraken on there. Those 2 tac droids are just really, really good to bring in those extra tokens and buff those as well. I do like the Hellfire tank droid as well. I think that's a really good piece to bring in, especially if you're already generating a ton of extra tokens. That's just easy for you to bring in and add in on there. The only thing I probably would have considered in probably sideboarding just a couple of reinforcement walkers on there, just to have that little bit of regen piece on there, or having a few more event cards to take out some of your units. I probably would have had a 3rd overwhelming barrage to this deck, just to have that extra threat on there to take out or push an extra damage to your unit early on. That's my only thing that I could really think of that would have benefited on there. But yeah, I like this deck a lot. It's really solid and very on theme with all the separatist droids.
Yeah, I would take out the Black Sun Starfighters. Actually, I'd probably just swap them for the Poggles in your sideboard. Just straight up. Maybe add a 3rd one and get rid of the Phantoms and change that into something else. Maybe a 3rd Overwhelming or something, or a 3rd Waylay. But otherwise, it's not... I don't think it's bad. You do kind of want maybe some more droid token generation, other than just the 2 Poggles. So maybe just a droid deployment, or even the battle droid escorts, where it's the 1/1 that creates a battle droid, that it dies, it creates another battle droid, because that with Grievous is just kind of a pain to get through 3 Sentinels. And it just allows you for your higher up exploit stuff. The tactical droid commander is okay, I guess. I'd probably split them into a 3rd Kraken and a 3rd Kalani, just because I'm weird like that. But you do have the exploit with them, so you could probably drop them a little bit earlier and then try to exhaust some things. But that doesn't really seem like what your deck's trying to go for.
It's not technically, but yes, you're right. If I add more tokens, the problem is if I add more tokens in there, he becomes more useful. But outside of the exhaust, he's not very useful. The only issue with the exhaust is they have a couple of units out and they can get through one of the Sentinels, then you can use it to exhaust it. But you're right. It's more of I liked it and thought it would be a good idea, but in theory, it's a good idea. But I have not tested this. You're probably right. It's probably better just to have the other two. The difference is it's not unique though, so I could play both of them. Whereas I can't do that with Kalani and Kraken. That's the only issue.
You can dump them out and throw in 2 invisible hands. It's not a bad ship either.
Yep, that was also contention. I didn't know if I could go late enough game with it, or not. I do think I was contemplating that droid deployments because, I mean, that is just really a good turn 1 play, to be able to do that, or being able to play the 2 ships turn 1 and then drop that the next turn. Now you got 4 units on the board that he could pick from, and 3 of them are droids that could be come sentinels. So
yeah, and obviously that would require a little bit more testing. If like triple poggle will be enough that you don't need droid deployments, or if you want to like double poggle, double droid. If the B1 security team's worth it, well, you also have the phase 3 Dark Troopers and someone whose ability gives them Sentinel.
Yeah, I think if I want, I could technically swap those B1 securities for the poggles, right? Like that, like just that specific trade. Like I do agree the Black 1 star ships are probably just overkill. But the idea is like I didn't have enough turn 1 plays, so that's why I put those in there. Because they were sentinels on their own, and so like I could do that, play another card. They have to swing into that sentinel. If they have something else that like a falcon that readies, I can then make one of my ships send.
But also like, and this is kind of like a meta thing, but there is like Cad Banes and Quinlans and stuff that just ping for 1 damage. So the B1 security teams are just like, cool, I play my 2-drop and it dies immediately.
Yep. You're right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm a little bit weary of things with 1 health right now that aren't like Greedo or like a Cloud Rider, I guess.
Yeah. And I do agree with you. I think the poggles are just better, probably better.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem like atrocious for being like, I'm going to make a Grievous, themed deck built around droids.
Yeah. That's what I was going for. Like I said, I like Grievous actually, like the play style, and I like the droids quite a bit. So it's kind of hard for me to feel sad that Grievous has not been really competitively viable.
Has anyone even tried building a Grievous deck competitively?
I don't know. Like, you would assume so.
Maybe. I don't know. I haven't heard anyone just put concentrated effort into doing it. So maybe there's something there. Who knows?
Yeah, I always feel like people just focus on what has won and they don't ever look at some of these other. Not saying that I don't do that too. Like my Django deck, though, I built that Django deck. I just want to make it clear that Django deck was built well before anybody built a triple dark raid version of that. So I have a video. We had a video where we talked about it.
It's true. I remember.
Yes, because you laughed at me and said Django would not be a thing. I remember that very, very much so.
Yeah, and he wouldn't be a thing if Boba didn't get banned.
It's true.
All right. So my next deck that I thought was thematic, and I'm sorry, like I just like Wookiees. Like I can't wait till I get my Ewok themed decks. But man, is it fun to play some Wookiees. And I love Chewbacca, like just plain Chewbacca. And when we played set 1 and we were doing drafts, so Chewbacca was so much fun to play. Now we've got like a full set of Wookiees. And so the idea is to build a Wookiee deck. And this one is probably a little bit worse off because you don't like... You can make them Sentinel, but if they just kill them, it's just inconsequential. So it's like I don't know, like I can't spam them like I can the other one. But let me go through the deck, and there isn't enough Wookiees, by the way. Just so you know, there's not enough Wookiees to include 3 ofs to only have just a Wookiee deck. It does not work. I've tried it.
Yeah.
So even if you use the offsuit ones, it still doesn't work. All right, so my Chewbacca deck, and I only did the Petriarchy Arena just so that Chewbacca hits a little bit harder. Like you probably don't need that. You probably just go with 30 health base. But like, if you aren't able to stop it, and by the time Chewbacca is ready to go, like you're kind of just out of luck. So
you can just infuriate everyone and play Jeddah City.
I could do that too.
Just drop something for a Sentinel, and then just be like, that thing gets -4. Now I can't kill him.
Yep, you could do that too. That is also an option. And it's like, what's 1 health in the long run for a base? Probably not much.
I'm a big Jeddah City supporter.
Yeah. All right, so I got 2 of the Arc 170s, the Restore ones, 3 Spark of Hopes, 3 Let the Wookiees Win, because if you're gonna play a Wookiee deck, you got to play Let the Wookiees Win, right?
Yeah.
I have 2 Cloud Riders, 3 of the Fugitive Wookiees, 3 of the Kashyyyk Defenders. I did put 2 R2D2s in here because it was really hard not to put an R2D2 in here. I put 3 Falcons because Chewie flies the Falcon, right? I don't have an excuse for the 2 Concord Dons, other than I just need space units, and that is the best.
I want to build a good deck. Help.
Yeah, you kind of need it a little bit, and you don't have to use Chewie's ability. So if you're playing later, anyway, you can play later stuff and then play that. I don't know. Then I have 3 of the Worcester Sauce Tree Defenders, 3 of the Liberated Peoples, 2 Perilous Perishings, or whatever you call that card.
Perilous Positions.
There you go. I did put 2. Now there were 2s in there, which I think is silly, but I think it works in this deck. I haven't tested this deck, just so we know, but I do think it might work in this deck because there's so much Wookiee, that you might be able to play a Tarful or a Gentle Giant early. You just might be able to bring something out pretty early. 1 takedown, because I always like takedown if I'm running a blue deck. 2 of the Azatuk Gunships, 2 Fell the Dragons, 3 of the Wookiee Warriors, 2 Chewbacca's, 3 Gentle Giants, 3 Tarful's, 2 of the Redemptions, and of course, you gotta have Chewbacca in there. I gotta have my Chewbaccas.
All 3 Chewbaccas.
Yes.
I gotta have it. They all look the same, but I definitely need to have that. I like that. I like the 8 cost Chewbacca because you can smuggle them out for 9. And that's kind of what this deck is going for. Now, my sideboard obviously is not built for Wookiees. My sideboard is the things I probably really want in there, like the Lukes. It's really hard to run a hero blue deck without Lukes in it. Though you do get Chewbacca's, you do get the Tarfuls. The Tarfuls and the Gentle Giants actually work really well together. They also work well with the Wookiee Warriors, and they definitely work with Chewbacca's, because if they can't kill that Chewbacca and you can heal from it, it's actually really dirty being able to have them attack. You can ready your Chewbacca, and that just does all sorts of crazy stuff. I really wish that Chewbacca was a 6 cost and just had grit. Let me have grit. That, I would just love that Chewbacca so much. But my sideboard consists of Arrival's Fall, 3 top targets, one more. Now there were 2 of them, 2 Lukes, 2 Hans, and a 3rd Chewbacca, because again, I just really love that Chewbacca. All right. Go ahead and tear my list apart, baby.
So honestly, I'm really, really, really surprised that you didn't include Han Solo in this list, because he's a friend of the Wookiees, man. Yeah. I think he should have been. I know, but I think that he should have been part of the main group there, mainly because I think he plays well with the rest of the Wookiees on there, especially if you have a couple of units or a bunch of Sentinel units on there. Just having Han there with the presence with Sentinel support just makes him that much more dangerous on there. I probably would have sacrificed some of the perilous positions just to include more Fell the Dragons or takeovers, or takedowns rather, not takeovers, to kind of help you deal with some of the some of the other ground units, your Vaders or Mauls or whatever, that can come in and deal a lot of damage and take out some of your lower grit units on there. I might have included a couple of more space units on the side just to give you a little bit more board presence on there, especially like Bright Hope, to bring out some of your wounded Wookiee warriors if you needed to, and then replay them again and get rid of some all their damage that they need to. I think that is a combo there that you could work that could work on this particular thing here. I wish that this would work, or at least this adds a green aspect, just so you can put in clone to have even more Wookiees added onto this. That would have been awesome. But overall, the combination with the Tarful and Gentle Giants is really amazing. I like that a lot. And then on top of that, Redemption as well. Just really great units on there to help boost the Wookiees on there. But overall, actually, I think this is a pretty fun deck. Very on theme. I for me though, Han has got to be main decked for sure for this list.
I agree. That's probably fair. You could easily cut a Tarful. Yeah, you can easily cut a Tarkin or a Tarful and a Gentle Giant at both of those.
Yeah.
Like you can do.
So this is kind of weird. I would actually like dump the Cloud Riders.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. And have like L3 in there.
Oh yeah, L3.
L3 is very annoying with Chewbacca, because when you smuggle her out, you can so one, you can smuggle her out, which is nice if you just don't have any other plays, but you're probably fine in this deck. But also like using Chewbacca's ability, dropping L3, who's now a shielded Sentinel 2/2, that's very, very nice. And I don't know. I'm sure Chewbacca was in the Han Solo movie, right? I didn't watch that one, but I'm sure they interacted on screen somewhere.
Yes, 100%. Yes.
So, I'd also probably do something like add Covert Strength, just heal 2, give an experience, because you have a lot of like grit, right? So you sacrifice 1 extra attack power to give them 1 extra health by giving them by healing them 2 and then giving them the experience. And also, that is just disgusting with like Wookiee warriors and the yellow Sentinel Chewbacca. I would also run 3 of the Sentinel Chewbacca, especially with Covert Strength, because the more attack you can dump on him, the more he readies. It gets really silly.
So do you dump the now there are 2 of them for the coverts? Is that what you do?
Yeah, I don't like another 2 of them anyways. I also don't like Sparkle Rebellion so much, but I know you love that.
I know you don't like that.
You could also probably cut a Fugitive Wookiee out, or like a Roshire Tree Tender, honestly. But also like Triple Oz attack would be nice. Maybe a couple of the 6-drop Falcons, just to have ambush. That way you can kind of control the space units. You don't need Sentinel if you have 2 ships that ambush and 1 that comes in ready. And they're all thematic-ish. I'm sure he was interacting at that Lando's Falcon in the movie. Yeah, definitely add the Han Solos too. Probably cut a Tarful and a Gentle Giant, like you were saying. That Chewbacca smuggles out for 11 though, because it smuggles out red. So that's a little bit rough.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
Yeah. But yeah, actually, honestly, I would probably up a perilous position too, just because that's the less damage going into your grit units, like the better they are. But yeah, just like Covert Strength and just more Ozatox, probably another takedown, another yellow Chewbacca, cut the Tarfuls at a Tarful and a Gentle Giant, adding 2 Hans, got the Cloud Riders for L3s. You know, you can toy around with some stuff and you actually have like the makings of like a decent deck. I have a local who just absolutely loves Wookiees, and we've gone back and forth trying to make Wookiee decks so much. And so we've done like a yellow Wookiee deck, like theory crafting, and like a mono blue Chewbacca mill Wookiee deck, which was kind of wild. So we're still working on it. We're 1 more set, or well, maybe not in the next one. 2 more sets. Maybe Wookiee Tribal could be a thing.
Yeah, I think it kind of depends on what they. But yeah, I don't know. Those are good suggestions. I actually agree with you. The L337. I didn't think about that. That's like really Cloud Riders are thematic anyway. So like, even if she's not thematic, who gives a shit? Like it does fit better. I had contemplated it. I just like the ambush piece of it, but you're right. If you just bring the smuggle piece, now the question becomes, I do kind of wonder if you drop the 2 Chewbacca's, like, because you can't smuggle them out. I don't know.
Damn Chewbacca's. I mean, they're still like a takedown body.
That's true. They got the grit with them. They do work very well with like Tarful as well. Like,
and Gentle Giant, just like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just a huge dude that you're gonna deal with, and you don't have Luke, so you kind of need something that you can play out of hand to like quickly remove something, especially if you're only running probably like 2 takedowns.
Yeah, the one takedown, the one-off takedown is just that's Tanner not wanting to run a deck without a takedown. Like, it's hard to run a deck without a takedown.
The other thing to consider is maybe adding Yoda. He's a great friend to the Wookiees. I think his ability
drops in this deck.
Yeah.
I would definitely swap out Cloud Rider for Yoda for sure.
Also, Let the Wookiee Win is a terrible, terrible card, but I know you have to include it in this deck.
It's a Wookiee card. Yeah.
I know. I would run 2 because it's not good. Like we tried in the Wookiee deck with it. And they're just like, I don't really care. Like, you're in such a losing position that giving you 6 extra resources doesn't really do too much.
Yeah.
But you have to include it in the Wookiee deck, and I totally get it.
It just feels bad to not.
Yeah. Like
And the artwork is so fun. I love the artwork. It's like the best artwork ever, like, in this game. It's my favorite art. Like, why can't that be a mat?
That would actually be awesome. To be fair, this deck actually has a bunch of really cool art.
Yeah.
I really love, I got a Hyperfoil Wookiee Warrior, and that just is like all the laser blasts coming at him and the foil and the full art. It's really, really cool looking.
Yeah. Recently, I actually just got a Hyperfoil Millennium Falcon. I couldn't believe that. So that was pretty.
It's wild.
Yeah. I actually have 2 Hyperfoil Wookiee Warriors. I have a Hyperfoil Chewbacca, the yellow Chewbacca, and then I have a Hyperfoil Tarful. So actually, and I have like the Worcester tree. I have all hyperspace and hyperspace foil card for whatever reason. I don't know why, but I can't run all hyperspace foil, but I'll run all hyperspace. Actually, with this deck, I can run like 50 or 60% of this deck. I can run hyperspace pretty easily or higher. So I don't know. I think this is fun, and like, I'm sorry, like, I know people probably find this segment boring, but I like thematic decks, and I really want to, like, sometimes we get so caught up in what's going to win and what's going to do this and what's going to do that. Like, it's just like, well, I don't know. It's a Wookiee deck. Like, is it not fun to run Wookiees? Like, and I do agree, like, people get really, like, it's funny because my son and I have to have a conversation, like, all right, we're going to test decks. Are we testing for a tournament, or are we just testing for fun? Because if we're just testing for fun, I'm not going to bring the Jangos out of the world. like, oh,
Yeah.
You're going to run a Wookiee deck. I'm definitely not bringing Jango out, because it's like, they're not going to do that.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, in testing stuff like this is where you tend to find combos that you never thought of before, and you bring it out, and they could potentially do good, especially if you bring it to like just a small tournament. If your opponent is so used to prepping for the Jangos, prepping for the Sabines and stuff, and they run into a Chewbacca deck that they're just not prepared for. I mean, you can seriously catch your opponent off guard and still have a ton of fun when you're playing this stuff.
Yeah, I have a local that also likes to play Chewbacca, and like, I've tried to explain to him red is not the color for Chewbacca. Like, it's not a bad deck in the long run of things, but I'm telling you, yellow's better. Like, it's just like you get Chewbacca, like the 5 cost Chewbacca. It's just like one of the best cards to be able to play in a Chewbacca deck. All right, so to wrap the episode up, I just want to talk, not a long time. I want to have a kind of a quick conversation, like a reflection, right? Like, so we've been a year into this game, almost, not quite a year, but we're close to a year. We've gone through 3 sets. We have set 4 on the horizon. We've seen what PQ play is. We've kind of seen how they're running the mechanics. It looks like we're getting different mechanics each set, but they're going to be kind of contained to a set. Don't know if that's good or bad, but I kind of wanted to like talk about a little bit about that for a few minutes, just because like we've invested into this game more than I think other people think we're crazy. You know, and like I replaced my competitive play experience with this game over the X-Wing that we were playing, right? And which is funny because I then played in an X-Wing league and went 6-3 easily with 2 week buys or whatever. And so like I kind of feel bad now because like now I'm doing better at X-Wing, and now the game, you know, it's just not there yet. And maybe we'll see a resurgence of it again, and we'll get some more local play, and that'll be fun. That's what we're very hopeful for. Honestly, like I would like to be able to put my ships on the table again. Like it is a fun game. But anyway, FFG has created this card game, and they are doing stuff with that carbonite that makes this feel a little bit more like Magic the Gathering, like when it comes to the collector piece. But we're also looking at it, and legendaries aren't worth what they used to be worth, right? Like Vaders aren't worth that. Is that good or bad for the game? So I kind of want to talk just a little bit about, you know, some of the good things, some of the things that we might want to question or be a little cautious of, and, you know, where do we think the game's going to go in the next, you know, couple of years? Like, do we, like they said they had a 5-year plan, if I remember right. I think that's what they said. They told us they had like a 5-year plan. So that's what JJ promised me. So I'm going to hold JJ to this. JJ told me he would reimburse me my full cost for this game if it doesn't hit 5 years. So just so you know, JJ, right now, no, you are. Just
what a guarantee.
Yeah.
All right. But then we're going to backtrack the 3 years of development then for the game so far. So we're already on year 5, if you want to count
that. No, you're only on year 4.
Terms and conditions.
You're only on year 4, baby. So I don't know. So why don't you kick it? It says JJ said you decided you're going to reimburse me. Like what are your thoughts so far? Like how do you feel about the game? Like and this is an open space. Like we don't have to worry about FFD coming, you know, saying it's like this is us being like real. And like if you listen to our old podcast, I know I talked a lot and I really want to give the mic back over a second, but we did this with AMG. Like we were very open and honest about our feelings and our thoughts, and like I don't want that to ever change. Like we're not this podcast that like, oh my gosh, we have to talk pro everything. Like that's not who we are. I would like to tell it how it is. I also don't want to paint like a bad picture because I don't like. I've had a lot of fun this year, and maybe some of it's due to the two of you. You guys are very fun to hang out with and talk with, and like I feel we have a good rapport. And I guess in my weird way of not being able to express my emotions like a normal human, I actually enjoy your guys' company quite a bit. And I look forward to doing our podcast every week just so I can hang out with you guys for a couple hours. Sometimes a little bit long. And, Tanner goes on a rant. But I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts? Don't make this a Tanner show. Don't somebody cut me off.
So I'll go first. So honestly, I've actually been very impressed with FFG so far with the way that they've handled the game. They initially had a bit of a stumble with the availability of of packs and such, especially during the release of Wave 1 and to a lesser extent Wave 2. I honestly I don't think they didn't expect that the game would have taken off as fast as it did. But the subsequent releases in Wave 2 and 3 have kind of eased the burden and provided the supply chain with the availability of cards to make the games a lot more accessible for it. The other part of it too is, they are actively listening to the community. The change to Boba was something that needed to be done. Something that they took their time with testing and getting data results from a lot of big tournaments to make that adjustment on there, because Boba was become a very big problem in the meta, and hopefully they continue that trend, that positive train of reacting to the community, see what's going on there, making adjustments to the game as needed for it. I hope that they continue to bring out more and more sets with a lot of creative builds in mind. There's just so much design space that they can really use in the game. There's so many pieces of the game that we still haven't seen being fully fleshed out. Like I would love to see them do a lot more with variable costs for deployment. Like if you end up deploying this with X amount of resources, you get this additional ability. Something that we're going to see a little bit more in the next wave that's coming up. That I think that's going to make the game even more fun. And on top of that, keeping that balance of letting the old cards still be very new or still be very viable, very playable as new sets come out. Just balancing that power creep, which can be very difficult, especially when you have approaching now more to 1,000 different types of cards that you have between all the different aspects and everything. But I think that FFG has definitely done a great job with the game so far, and I'm really excited to see what they do in the future.
Alex?
Yeah, no, I mean, I've not a big TCG kind of guy, but they killed off X-Wing, and then everyone was playing X-Wings, playing this, so I'm like, okay, I still want to hang out with all the people who played X-Wing with. I like those people. And then I tried out this game, and I'm like, wow, this is significantly better than it really has any right to be. So I stuck with it, and it's fun. And like you, Tanner, this is replacing my competitive anything because they killed off X-Wing, which also sucks. I just had an incredible run at X-Wing at PAX, better than I've ever had at a series of X-Wing ever. But that game's dead, so I'm playing this, and it's fun. I like that FFG is able to now the supply's everywhere, so that's good. You're not going to have this game sold more in 1 month and the entire game of Destiny did in 1 year. Supply chain issue, so that's fun. I like the game. I like the draft. I like that you can draft. Like there's different modes for that. Sealed's still my favorite. And I'm having a lot of fun with it. I like that they're doing like some sort of collectible card game thing like Magic, because that's just more money for FFG to dump into this game theoretically. And I'm excited to what it holds in the future for next year. A lot of cool design space still exists, and I'm excited about that.
And I think I'm kind of in the same boat. I'm not as excited about the special collector's pack stuff. I won't lie and say that I'm I already thinking about how to maximize the credit card out to get a case of that.
Right. No, you don't have to buy them, right?
I know. I know. You know what I just bought? Well, I just bought a box of set 1, and I just bought a Fennec showcase too, because
nice.
I got it pretty cheap.
I have a Fennec showcase.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I got it for $80.
Okay, that's
nice.
I with shipping. That's what I paid too. So it was kind of it's cheaper than buying a box. So I'm just gonna buy the showcase.
Yeah, I think I got it right the week after I played it at Eternal. So right in the heart of set 2 store champs. But it's not like anyone's playing Fennec, so that wasn't terribly difficult to acquire. And my buddy was looking to offload it, so it's cute.
So the only concern, so on a positive side, I think the game feels like it's doing well. I will say it feels a little bit harder sometimes to build some of the local communities, and I really want them to focus a little bit more on that. I know everybody wanted this competitive piece, but I also would like focusing on some of the local communities and how to help benefit stores, because the problem I have is that they gave it to so many stores. Our area has 10 stores you can go to, or more. And it's just oh my gosh, how do you congregate people? Everybody's got a favorite, store. I'm very loyal to my store, but I also attend other stores, but I don't have the free time that other people have. If I get 2 nights a week to play that means I'm not playing any other board games, outside of my house. And that's a hard thing for me. Because I just enjoy board games as a whole. I have some time off coming up for this holiday. And you know what Tanner's got on the agenda? We're gonna get through another Arkham. We're getting through an Arkham thing, baby. I'm gonna get through my Arkham horror LCG. I'm gonna get through a whole campaign. It's my goal. Maybe 2 of them. I mean, I've got like a week and a half off, so I want to get through at least one. I really want to get through the new Marvel Champions. I haven't actually finished the Apocalypse one. Like, I bought it and I have all the hero packs, and I haven't finished it yet. So,
that's been a ton of fun for me. I love that game. It's pretty good.
Yeah, and I do too. I am happy to play it a lot less than what I was playing it. Like, this game feels better to play, and I like playing this game better in the long run. But that game is a great palate cleanser, and it's something that like I could play with like my kids, and nobody gets angry at each other because Tanner or because I ran Django or I played Thrawn and they didn't get to play a unit the whole game because they played Maul. I just said your Maul doesn't get to do anything because I'm Thrawn. So I think like on a high note, like the Boba ban was like the highlight to me, like them acknowledging it and like saying, okay, hold on a second, because I feel our meta has gotten better. Like, I feel that we're moving towards a little bit more of a lot of other things. Like, Sabine is no longer, like, they are correct. I don't think Sabine is the top deck anymore at all. And I almost would say, like, Sabine hasn't taken a back seat, but Sabine has now become, like, you could play a couple other decks that do similar things, just a different flavor, and get the same type of result, right? So, we're no longer in a Sabine Boba meta. With Kira on the back heels. So I say that every time just for Alex, because about but so I think that's like one of the big things is for me is that the diversity of this game has gotten good. I will say the thing that I get concerned about the most is how are you going to continue to keep local audiences engaged. I don't give a crap about the pricing right now as much because I'm kind of okay with the prices coming down. So that you could get more people into the game. Like, that's really what I would rather do is, like, I would rather Alex doesn't own $1 million worth of product that he can, like, make a bunch of money off of. I'd rather the shit that he owns is worth next to nothing, and the fact that we could get a bunch of people into the game. Like, that's a lot more fun. And, like, if people do stop buying boxes and just buy singles, like, the market will correct itself. It has before. Like, less product will mean the singles will go up, and then people will buy boxes again. So I'm not worried about that. But I just want to the 2 things I hope for is that they continue to ensure that they're going to support local stores, giving us maybe some other modes or some other ways to make like local stores competitive. Like I would like to be able to go to Worlds after winning a Twin Suns tournament, right? Like that's cool. That's something that other people can get into and things like that. And I would also like to see some of the mechanics that they've introduced to us continue to I would like a little bit more smuggle. You don't have to give me like 50 other smuggle cards, but it would be nice to get a few smuggle cards in a set. We got more Underworld. I mean, like we got Underworld cards for Christ's sake coming in set 4. So like, I mean, they didn't just end Underworld at set 2. So they could do some of these other ones, and I would like to see that. And the last thing is give me Ewoks. Damn it. I want my Ewoks. I said it on their stream. I literally said it on their stream, and Alex called me out for it.
I saw that, and I'm like, that has to be Tanner.
It was. I'm sitting. So the best part is I'm in a meeting. Like I'm in one of our town halls. Like and I'm watching FFG on one screen and this on the other screen. I got the subtitles going on both of them, and like they're like, where's my Wookiees? Give me Wookiees. Give me Wookiees. And I feel like I'll beat that over the head. So we'll see. I don't know. Bobby Sapphire should be excited for Wookiees because he's the one that made Wookiees popular. But that was my favorite deck to play. I love Wookiees so much. Anyway, so other than that, like I think the game's fun, and I think that I don't think we're gonna see a downturn, and I really hope that like we continue to see the community grow as this game grows. So, I don't know. Any other final thoughts before we wrap the new year up?
I'm excited for what lies ahead in 2025.
Which is weird to say 2025, right? Like, can we go back like 20 years? Can I be 20 years old again? Like, I don't know if I want to be 42 next year. So, all right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us tonight. It was a fun. We're not going to be casting next Sunday. I might still do a deck. I don't know. Maybe I'll do a deck tech. Maybe we'll do an X-Wing episode. But literally, I'm going to cancel the show for the rest of the year. And then if the guys want to do something, we get together and do something. Great. If we don't, we will see you in the new year. Definitely that first weekend, because Alex and I will be fresh off of peak. And stuff like that. So maybe Alex and I will do like a pre-show or something like that. The week of, we'll do like a couple of minutes, like small show talking about our decks or things like that. Or we'll talk about decks we aren't running. Because remember when Alex did that with his deck for Worlds, and then that listener knew how to play against you. That was bad. That was
well,
hilarious.
they forgot since then, to my benefit, thankfully for PAX.
So anyway, have a happy holidays. Hopefully you have a good Christmas if you celebrate it, and have a happy Hanukkah, happy Kwanzaa, all of the fun jazz that happens, and everybody can have a happy new year. So with that being said, I'm going to wrap up, and we will see you early next year, January 6th, January 7th. No, January 4th. January 4th.
January 4th. Yeah.
We'll see you January 4th. Thank you all. Have a good night, and we'll see you on the Flippity Flop.
Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks for listening.